The first 15 years I was in Ukraine, I worked with a very different aspect of ministry. I was located in Crimea, and I did Christian medical training and workshops and seeing patients there in Crimea, working with local churches to doing medicine through evangelism, or evangelistic medicine, however you want to call it. And then in the summers, I would spend with the youth groups and the kids doing vacation Bible schools, not leading them, but helping to facilitate them to happen. However, in March 1st of 2015, I fled because of the Russians coming in, and they would later occupy the entire peninsula. God would then move me up to the capital of Ukraine, which is in Kyiv, and I've been there for the past 5 years. So overall, in the big picture, I've served as a missionary with CMF in Ukraine for almost 24 years. These past 5 years in Kyiv, God has changed my ministry very differently, and the major focus is working with families who have a special needs family member, usually children. I started hearing about different places reaching out to the disabled. You have to remember that Ukraine is only 30 years old. Before that, she was under Russia. And in Russia, there was no handicapped people. There were none. They were either hid at home, they were aborted, or they were put in asylums. Since 1992, the people have started coming out of their homes. Mothers are doing less abortions when they hear that their child is not going to be born as a typical. And in Ukraine, you're starting to see them on the streets and in the playgrounds and in the parks. And that's where Ukraine is now. We're going out to include the blind and the lame, the non-typical, the mentally delayed, all the people that have been hid away for so many years are now being invited to the table. I had returned to Oregon in the middle of December to take my certification test for my wound and ostomy care specialty. And before leaving, we were very aware that there was unrest at the border, but no one knew what was going to happen. When the war broke out on February 24th, that changed everything for everybody. And I couldn't go help. And if I did go help, what could I do? But then one day I walked into the office, into the bedroom, and looked at my laptop, and I saw a text message from the person that I've most invested in Ukraine, the person that I've made most closely a replicate of myself. And my friend Ira was saying, "Can you please call me?" So I did. So I called to Germany and talked with Sergei and Natalia Balchuk, who are the directors of the Agape Center. The Agape Center is a Christian rehabilitation center for those who have suffered a spinal injury or a neck injury. And they're helping the people in a holistic way come back to as far close to normal as they can and be as independent as possible. And they are a group and a ministry that I've worked with now for 5 years.
My name is Sergei, my wife Natalia. We live in Lutsk, western part of Ukraine. In 2001, we had car accident and my wife broke neck and she was paralyzed 21 years till this time. And in that time, God showed us ministry for people with disability, and we start 2005, and we organize for first time summer camps and meetings and other things. After that, we began rehab complex for people with disability in our town. From 2016, we worked till this time. And it was wonderful time, and our center growing and growing every year.
До початку війни в нас було стабільне, розмірене життя. Ми мали служіння, мали будинок, мали все необхідне. І тут прийшла війна, якої ми не очікували. І Здавалося, що наше життя руйнується на маленькі кусочки, як то зеркало розбилося. І воно розбилося дійсно, тому що ми зараз не є не є на батьківщині. Ми втратили.
Our group was very difficult because people with neck trauma and they have bed sores and other problems, and it was difficult for medical care. And we pray to Lord how we can decide this problem. And we know Christina, she is our very close friend. We love her very much, and she was in USA in that time when war became, and we invite her, ask her, could you help us, please? Could you fly to us? And it's so very amazing. At Friday, we speak. At Monday, she will hear.
So when they said come, and the German director of this center said come, I pushed all my plans away, and 5 days later I was here, and it's good to be here. It feels good to be serving and not just sitting. I came expecting to know that I didn't know everything that was going to happen, and that's proved to be true. I have been able to be their medical person, but also am serving as a translator and also a bridge between the medical system here and their language and their needs. So it's been a privilege to be here, and I'm glad to be here. The first group that evacuated through the Agape Center was this group that had arrived here in Germany, and no medical people had been able to evacuate with them. And that made sense to me because they were needed there and for various reasons could not travel. But the fact still remained that there were paraplegics and quadriplegics in this group, and if they didn't already have a pressure wound that was created during the 3 days of evacuation while they were traveling, unable to stop and appropriately rest. So there was pressure wounds and medical issues that they had no one to help with. My day-to-day here is, again, doing wound care, and it's been a privilege. I've had a lot of support from the director of the center, from the local doctor, from the local nurse, and even from the local medical supply companies. We had a wheelchair company just show up at the door, and he had 4 wheelchair cushions that are the best that exist. Each one costs $400, and he just showed up one day saying, I heard you guys have a need. And I've seen God move in the hearts of Germans and Europe in general, in how they've reached out and brought us in, welcomed the refugees, helped the refugees, everything from toothpaste to cake to clothing to paying for expensive medical dressings that we really have benefited from. I'm grateful to God for how He has used His people in Europe to help with the people in Ukraine. There's always, as a missionary, there's ways that you think, it's like, anybody else could be doing it, or a doctor should be here, or a person that's actually fluent in the language should be here, or anybody else but me should be here. But God chooses who He wants to work with. He chooses the available. He chooses those who desire to do His work and be a part of what His plan is for a people group and for a country. And so when you're available, that's the blessing.
We thank you very much for Christina. We love her, and we love you all your mission, all your team. Let God bless you richly, and we hug you all. Ще раз почекайте. Помахайте.